Welcome back to And Just Like Crap, a review and recap of Sex and the City revival series And Just Like That, which answers the age-old question, what if an Englishman said a lot of mean things about a mostly terrible TV show? And this episode is a real return to form. Because it was pretty bad. Buckle up and let's get into it. If any of you were hoping that Carrie's adventure in fiction writing would wind up being one of And Just Like That's forgotten plots, I'm gonna have to disappoint you. Her book editor, Amanda, unhelpfully suggests that she make her latest travesty a fantasy romance. The fantasy component being the idea that anybody would actually read this tripe. We also discover that both Google and South by Southwest are trying to book Carrie for speaking engagements. I'm not even going to dignify that with a rant, so instead, I'll just say, f**k right off. Doesn't matter anyway, because Carrie fobs off both of those incredibly overgenerous offers in favour of a panel on memoirs in Virginia. Because that's where her boyfriend lives. And while she's there, she can go see the... oh. Or maybe the... oh dear. And there's the... Jesus Christ, Virginia. Then she gets a call from Aiden's ex-wife Kathy asking her to traffic down some ADHD meds because that's a totally normal thing to ask the bookend at both sides of your marriage to do. But we'll come back to that later. For now, let's marvel at how Kathy's saved in the phone as Kathy Aiden's wife. Another win for the old Bradshaw creativity there. Unless it's an even lazier piece of writing than I thought, and they're trying to tell us that her maiden name is Kathy Aiden's wife. I was almost distracted from that shoddy production design by the bag lying next to it. Looks like she took a bland clutch out shopping with her in 1995 and got caught in an explosion at the Nature Company. Carrie ends up trekking out to Virginia with Seema, where they eat KFC wings on their hotel towels. So, if you ever lose your mind, vacation in rural Williamsburg and wonder why your hair smells like a chicken's greasy asshole after your morning shower, now you know. Miss Bradshaw really wants to stay at Aiden's place, but also really wants Aiden to offer so that she doesn't have to ask, which is, at least, consistent with her usual behaviour. And he doesn't ask until he's forced to rescue her from car trouble. At which point, a series of very strange things happen. In a super sketchy scene, Aiden reveals that he and his sons, apparently, have a nightly routine in which they lay out exactly what will happen the next day. And since Carrie wasn't already on the schedule, that means she can't stay in the main house. Almost like an unwanted house guest. Or a stray dog. It gets all the sketchier when she hands over the requested bag of meds and Aiden has a bizarre, muted reaction to it. Is it too much to hope for that something actually interesting is about to happen? And from Aiden, no less. A man who at this point in his life probably bleeds beige. But because Carrie hasn't read The Room once in her whole life, she completely breezes past the strangeness of the whole situation. So giddy is she to have gotten her way, albeit hidden in a converted barn like a 15th century mistress. Ooh, there's the plot for that crappy novel. I'll await my check. This week in Who Gives a Shit news, Anthony stages a soft opening of his Hot Fellas bakery store, where, I'm convinced, he receives a governmental subsidy for hiring well-endowed farmhands who have been kicked in the head by horses. And the horse he has at home, tortured poet Giuseppe, refuses to don a denim onesie and lend his whopping wang to the launch efforts. But then he does. Captivating TV. Lisa's documentary series drags ever onward. In a spectacular irony fail for someone producing a show about unsung black women, she hassles editor Grace, her own unsung black woman, to reject a job offer from Steve McQueen. After 8 long years working on this project, Grace should be in line for some sort of humanitarian award. or the sweet release of death. Seema's business partner Elliot announces that he's selling his half of their firm to Ryan Serhant, which Seema takes a lot better than I would have, because I'd have been halfway to the ground floor via the nearest window before he'd even crossed the threshold. She eventually decides to invest in herself, which I think means starting her own company, but could equally mean buying an item of clothing that doesn't look like it was just peeled off something that lives in a swamp. Charlotte's first involvement in this episode is actually in Carrie's storyline. She volunteers to score the meds with, might I add, frightening ease, for Kathy Aiden's wife's son and Carrie's rotting albatross, Wyatt. Because what could possibly go wrong, dosing your children with mystery pills from a Ziploc bag provided by a medically unqualified momfluencer? Her main storyline this episode features the regrettable return of her young co-workers from the gallery. She joins them at a series of after-parties so that she too can sell pretentious tat to a bunch of wealthy men with powdery noses. And in doing so tries to revive the fun Charlotte of her youth again. At which point I'm obligated to remind you that fun Charlotte does not, I repeat, does not exist. Think back to every drunken night we've seen her have. We all know that girl. We've probably all been that girl. The one speedrunning the drink, cry, vomit cycle and peeing through her underwear behind a trash can at roughly 8 PM. But it's not Charlotte in need of Depends in this episode. I'm sorry to report that it's Harry who messes his criminally tight Cool Dude jeans, since his bladder is unable to withstand so many ludicrous, ever-deepening levels of after-party that I'm shocked this episode didn't turn out to be a backdoor pilot for an Inception TV show. I'll give them credit for at least featuring an older man having a leaky little oopsie-daisy. And I am entertained by the idea that, since we discovered last season that Harry's little swimmers have been vacationing in his bladder, there's a decent chance he's unknowingly pissing and jizzing his pants at the same time. But come on, and just like that. Charlotte's storyline here is an already tired rehash of one resolved in Season 2, and Harry is just being used as a punching bag at this point. Do something interesting with them. And not with those f***ing kids either. Anyway, after a quick misunderstanding-based groping by a drug-addled Dutchman in a grotty bathroom, we at least end on a high note. As Charlotte leaves the club in broad daylight, a homeless guy, who I really hope is New York's Radio Man, passes comment on her
massive da honka bankaloos.
Glorious. Miranda finally asks out BBC producer Joy, but not on a date just yet, for happy hour under the guise of asking for TV interview tips. Because apparently the writers have forgotten that we already saw them having drinks in last season's finale. But we're not expecting high quality writing at this point, are we? Carrie, in the midst of her own multi-layered gameplay with Aiden, unironically quizzes Miranda on whether she needs to employ deception to secure a date by stealth. A question quickly answered on the not date itself. Even if Joy didn't very clearly know what's going on, Miranda, it seems, is incapable of being touched by someone she finds attractive without immediately flooding her basement. All it takes is a palm on the clavicle and her eyes are practically rolled back in her head. Not exactly subtle. And that's it. That's all the Miranda you get this episode. If that leaves you wondering how they managed to wring 40 plus minutes a week out of this, you're not alone. Or for that matter, how they're going to stretch this storyline out over a whole season. I'd say I can't wait to find out, but I could. I definitely could. This video's question is, what would you do in Carrie's position? Would you allow yourself to be relegated to the guest house? Or would you get the hell out of Dodge? Let me know in the comments below, and the best will send us a postcard from Virginia next time. Either way, thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, if you can't be good, be crusty.